Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So, continuing our reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhulila, chapter 16. The Lord's attempt to go to Vrindavan. And because this is a long chapter, we're going to read through the verses steadily, and then we'll pick out a few choice purports by Srila Prabhupada. There actually are not that many purports in this chapter, interestingly enough. By the nectar of his personal glance, the cloud known as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu poured water upon the garden of Gaudadesh and revived the people who were like creepers and plants burning in the forest fire of material existence. All glories to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all glories to Lord Nityananda, all glories to Advaita Chandra, and all glories to all the devotees of the Lord. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu decided to go to Vrindavan, and Maharaj Prataparudra became very morose upon hearing this news. The king therefore called for Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Ramananda Rai, and he spoke the following submissive words to them. Prataparudra Maharaj said, "Please endeavor to keep Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu here at Jagannath Puri, for now he is thinking of going elsewhere." The story continues where Maharaj Prataparudra, he was so disturbed by this that he considered his kingdom to be worthless without the Lord's presence. After this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself consulted with Ramananda Roy and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, saying, "I shall go to Vrindavan." Ramananda Roy and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya requested the Lord to first observe the Rath Yatra festival. Then when the month of Kartik arrived, he could go to Vrindavan. And this is actually an ongoing rasa that they were having, that Sarvabhauma Ramananda Roy and the king would conspire to try to keep Chaitanya Mahaprabhu from leaving Puri. However, when the month of Kartik came, they both told the Lord, "Now it is very cold. It is better that you wait to see the Daladara festival and then go. That will be very nice." Dola Yatra festival, sorry. That Dola Yatra is the swinging of the deities. In this way, they both presented many impediments, indirectly not granting the Lord's permission to go to Vrindavan. They did this because they were afraid of separation from him. Although the Lord is completely independent and no one can check him, he still did not go without permission of his devotees. Then, for the third year, all the devotees of Bengal wanted to return again to Jagannath Puri. All the Bengali devotees gathered around Advaita Acharya, and in great jubilation the Acharya departed for Jagannath Puri to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Every year the devotees from Bengal and Orissa would all converge upon Puri and be there for the Rath Yatra, the Dola Yatra, and then Chaturmasya. Although the Lord told Nityananda Prabhu to stay in Bengal and spread ecstatic love of God, Nityananda left to go to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Who can understand Nityananda Prabhu's ecstatic love? Narahari and Sri Raghunandana, who were from the village of Kanda, and many other devotees also departed. Who can count them? Then there is a wonderful list of so many wonderful Vaishnavas who would come from all over Bengal and Orissa to attend this wonderful gathering. And Shivananda Sain, who was in charge of the party, made arrangements to clear the tax collecting centers. He took care of all the devotees and happily traveled with them. Shivananda Sain took care of all the necessities the devotees required. In particular, he made arrangements for residential quarters, and he knew the roads of Orissa. This year, all the devotees' wives also went to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sita Devi, the mother of Achyutananda, went with Advaita Acharya. And then there's a wonderful description of some of the wives who also came, and their sons as well. Chaitanya Das, the son of Shivananda Sain, the wife of Chandrasekhar, to offer Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu various kinds of food. All the wives of the great devotees brought from home various dishes that pleased Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. As stated, Shivananda Sain made all arrangements for the party's necessities. In particular, he pacified the men in charge of levying taxes and found resting places for everyone. Shivananda Sain also supplied food to all the devotees and took care of them along the way. In this way, feeling great happiness, he went to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Jagannath Puri. When they all arrived at Remuna, they went to see Lord Gopinath. In the temple there, Advaita Acharya danced and chanted. And there's a very nice exchange with Sri Nityananda Prabhu, who received the nectar, what is it called? The kheer that's offered to Gopinath, and he distributed it to all the assembled Vaishnavas. Then they discussed the story of Sri Madhavendra Puri's installation of the Gopal deity, and they discussed how Gopal begged sandalwood from him. Walking and walking in this way, the devotees arrived in the city of Katak, where they remained for a day and saw the temple of Shakshi Gopal. When Nityananda Prabhu described all the activities of Shakshi Gopal, transcendental bliss increased in the minds of all the Vaishnavas. Everyone in the party was very anxious to hear and at heart to be able to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Therefore, they hastily went on to Jagannath Puri. When they all arrived at a bridge called Attaranala, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, hearing the news of their arrival, sent 2 garlands with Govinda, and those were offered to Advaita Acharya and Nityananda Prabhu. Then as they got closer and closer, a second time, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sent garlands through Swarup Damodar and other personal associates. Thus, they went forward, sent by the son of Mother Sachi. When the devotees from Bengal reached Lake Narendra, Swarup Damodar and the others met them and offered them the garlands given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When the devotees finally reached the Lion Gate, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard the news and personally went to meet them. Then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all his devotees visited Lord Jagannath. Finally, accompanied by them all, he returned to his own residence. In the previous year, everyone had his own particular residence, and the same residences were again offered. Thus they all went to take rest. For 4 continuous months, all the devotees remained there and enjoyed chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. As in the previous year, they all washed the Gundicha temple when the time for Rath Yatra arrived. The inhabitants of Kalina Gram delivered silken ropes to Lord Jagannath, and as previously, they all danced before the Lord's car. After dancing a great deal, they all went to a nearby garden and took rest beside a lake. A Brahmana named Krishnadas, who was a resident of Radhadesh and a servant of Lord Nityananda's, was a very fortunate person. It's described that he had this great water pot and he poured it over the Lord while he was taking his bath. The Lord was greatly satisfied by this. The remnants of food offered to the Lord at Balagandi then arrived in great quantity, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all his devotees ate it. As in the previous year, the Lord with all the devotees saw the Rath Yatra festival and the Hara Panchami festival as well. Advaita Acharya then extended an invitation to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and there was a great rainstorm connected with that incident. All the chief devotees, headed by Chandrasekhar, would extend invitations to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu periodically. At the end of the 4-month Chaturmasya period, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu again consulted with Nityananda Prabhu daily in a solitary place. No one could understand what their consultation was about. Then Srila Advaita Acharya said something to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu through gestures and read some poetic passages which no one understood. Seeing the face of Advaita Acharya, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu smiled. Understanding that the Lord had accepted the proposal, Advaita Acharya started to dance. No one knew what Advaita Acharya requested or what the Lord ordered. After embracing the Acharya, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu bade him farewell. Then there's a wonderful exchange between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu kindly asks him not to come to Jagannath Puri every year, but to stay in Bengal and to fulfill his desire. And there's a beautiful, beautiful purport here by Srila Prabhupada, in which he elaborates on the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and how it's to spread the holy name, and it being the only medicine effective in this fallen age of Kali. And I would strongly recommend the devotees to please read this. And Prabhupada says right at the end of the purport, the devotees of Lord Chaitanya must preach Krishna consciousness in every village and town in the world. That will satisfy the Lord. It is not that one should act whimsically for his own personal satisfaction. This order comes down through the parampara system, and the spiritual master presents these orders to the disciple so that he can spread the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It is the duty of every disciple to carry out the order of the bona fide spiritual master and spread Lord Chaitanya's message all over the world. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, "You can perform a task that even I cannot do, but for you I cannot find anyone in Gaudadesh who can fulfill my mission there." And Prabhupada again, he writes a wonderful, wonderful, long purport describing Lord Chaitanya's mission to deliver the fallen souls of this age. And Prabhupada points out, in this age of Kali, practically 10% of the population is fallen. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu certainly delivered many fallen souls, but his disciples mainly came from the upper classes. And then Prabhupada goes on to describe some of the Vaishnavas that took up that mission, such as Sarvabhauma and even Jagai Madai. He elaborates on their exchange with Nityananda Prabhu and the deliverance of Jagai Madai, and how they also became very potent examples. Nityananda Prabhu replied, "O Lord, you are the life and I am the body. There is no difference between the body and the life itself. But life is more important than the body. By your inconceivable energy, you can do whatever you like, and whatever you make me do, I do without restriction." In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced Nityananda Prabhu and bade him farewell. He then bade farewell to all the other devotees. As in the previous year, one of the inhabitants of Klinagram submitted a petition to the Lord saying, "My Lord, kindly tell me what my duty is and how I should execute it." The Lord replied, "You should engage yourself in the service of the servants of Krishna and always chant the holy name of Krishna. If you do these two things, you will very soon attain at Krishna's lotus feet." So what are those two things? Engage in the servants of the Lord and always chanting Hare Krishna. The inhabitants of Kalinagram said, please let me know who is actually a Vaishnava and what his symptoms are. Understanding his mind, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu smiled and gave the following reply. A person who is always chanting the holy name of the Lord is to be considered a first-class Vaishnava, and your duty is to serve his lotus feet. And Prabhupada gives a wonderful, wonderful 3-page purport describing the need or the necessity or the importance of serving the Vaishnavas. The following year, the inhabitants of Kalinagram again asked the Lord the same question. Hearing this question, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu again taught them about the different types of Vaishnavas. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, the first-class Vaishnava is he whose very presence makes others chant the holy name of Krishna. So he gives 2 definitions. It's very interesting. And then in the purport, Prabhupada talks about the 3 types of Vaishnavas, the Vaishnava, the Vaishnavara, and the Vaishnatama. In other words, the Kanista, the Madhyam, and Uttam Adhikaris. Beautiful, beautiful purport. He comments on the on Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's statements. In this way, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught the distinctions between different types of Vaishnavas, Vaishnava, Vaishnavatara, and Vaishnavatama. He thus successively explained all the symptoms of a Vaishnava to the inhabitants of Kalinagram. Finally, all the Vaishnavas returned to Bengal, but that year, Pundarik Vidyanidhi remained at Jagannath Puri. And then there's a beautiful short description of the exchange that Pundarik has with who? Jagannath Swami. Right? He criticizes the starch in the cloth that's offered to the Lord during this time period. It's called Odana Shasti. And the deities are offered fresh cloth, but it's winter. So it was very starchy, and Pundarik became disturbed by it in his mind, and then he had a wonderful experience of Jagannath and Balaram that evening in a dream in which they were slapping him. And although his face in the morning was red, he was quite blissful from the whole experience. Every year the devotees of Bengal would come and stay with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to see the Ratha Yatra festival. Whatever happened during those years that is worth noting shall be described later. Thus, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu passed 4 years. He spent 2 years in the south and then 2 years in Puri. He could not leave Jagannath Puri because of Ramananda's tricks. And we heard about those tricks, right? Oh, it's the Chaturmasya, oh, it's the rainy season, oh, it's too cold. And in this way they were trying to hold on to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. During the 5th year, the devotees from Bengal came to see the Rath Yatra festival, and after seeing it, they did not stay but returned to Bengal. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu placed a proposal before Sarvabhauma and Ramananda Rai. He embraced them and spoke sweet words. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "My desires to go to Vrindavan has been very much increased. Because of your tricks, I have not been able to go there for the past 2 years. This time I must go. Will you please give me permission, save for you too? I have no other resort. In Bengal, I have 2 shelters, my mother and the river Ganges. Both of them are very merciful. So I shall go to Vrindavan through Bengal and see both my mother and the river Ganges. Now would you too be pleased to give me permission?" They both said, "Well, now that the rainy season is here, it would be very difficult for you to travel. It is better to wait for Vijay Dasami. before departing for Vrindavan. We know what Vijay Dasami is? That's the victory celebration commemorating Durga and Lord Ram, their victories over evil. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very pleased to thus receive their permission. He waited until the rainy season passed, and when the day of Vijay Dasami arrived, he departed for Vrindavan. The Lord collected whatever remnants of food were left by Lord Jagannath. He also took remnants of the Lord's Kadara ointment, sandalwood, and ropes with him. I don't know what Kadara ointment is. Does anyone know? I presume it's some kind of medication for Lord Jagannath's illness, right? It was a leftover. After taking Lord Jagannath's permission, early in the morning, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu departed, and all the devotees of Orissa began following him. With great care, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu forbade the Orissan devotees to follow him. Then, accompanied by his personal associates, he first went to Bhavanipur. After Lord Chaitanya reached Bhavanipur, Ramananda Roy arrived on his palanquin, and Vaninath Roy had a large quantity of prasadam sent to the Lord. After taking prasad, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu remained there for the night. Early in the morning, he began walking, and finally he reached Bhubaneswar. After reaching the city of Katak, he saw the temple of Gopal, and a Brahmana there named Swapneshwar invited the Lord to eat. Ramananda Roy invited all the others for their meals, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made his resting place in a garden outside the temple. This is very interesting because right after that, Ramananda Roy contacted King Prataparudra and told him that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is here. And so Ramananda immediately, or the king, immediately came to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he, upon seeing him, fell flat to offer his obeisances. Being overwhelmed with love, the king again and again got up and fell down. When he offered prayers, his whole body shivered, and tears fell from his eyes. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very pleased to see the devotion of the king, and he therefore stood up and embraced him. When the Lord embraced the king again and again offered prayers and obeisances. In this way, the Lord's mercy brought tears from the king, and the Lord's body was bathed with those tears. Finally, Ramananda Roy pacified the king and made him sit down. The Lord bestowed mercy upon him through his body, mind, and words. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed such mercy to the king that from that day on the Lord became known as Prataparudra Shantradha, the deliverer of Maharaj Prataparudra. Right after this, the king, he had all of his ministers make whatever arrangements were necessary for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's travel, as well as the devotees who were accompanying him, making sure that they were all given residences, and they would construct new residences, and they would have food stored in those places, so that when the Lord would come and have rest, everything would be nicely done. The king continued, "At Chatur Dwar, please construct new residential quarters. Now, Ramananda Roy, you can return to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu." When the king heard that the Lord was leaving that evening, he immediately made arrangements for some elephants with small tents on their backs to be brought there. Then all the ladies of the palace got on the elephants. All these ladies went to the Lord, to the road the Lord was taking, and remained there in a line. That evening the Lord departed with his devotees. Upon seeing the Lord, all the ladies felt themselves overwhelmed with love of Godhead, and tears pouring from their eyes, they began to chant the holy name, Krishna, Krishna. There is no one as merciful as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu within all the three worlds. Simply by seeing him from a distance, one is overwhelmed with love of Godhead. This is very interesting because in the coming chapters, there'll be another experience like this. The Lord then got into a new boat and crossed the river. The Lord spent the night there and in the morning took his bath. At that time, remnants of Lord Jagannath's food arrived. Following the king's orders, the superintendent of the temple sent large quantities of prasadam every day, and it was carried by many persons. Ramananda Roy, Mardaraj, and Sri Harichandana also went with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and rendered various services. And then there's a list of some very wonderful Vaishnavas, Srup Damodar, Jagadananda, Rakeshwar, Pana, Gopinath, Damodar. They were all accompanying the Lord in his travels. But when Gadadhar started to go with the Lord, he was forbidden to come and was asked not to give up the vow of Kshetra Sannyas. Purport: when one takes Kshetra Sannyas, he leaves his household life and goes to a place of pilgrimage devoted to Lord Vishnu. Such places include Purushottam, Navadvip Dham, and Mathura Dham. The Kshetra Sannyas lives in these places alone or with his family. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur considers Kshetra Sannyas to be the preferable Vanaprastha situation in this age of Kali. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya lived in this way, and he has been called a Kshetra Sannyasi. That is a sannyasi living in Jagannath Puri. When he was requested to return to Jagannath Puri, Gadadhar Pandit told the Lord, "Wherever you are staying is Jagannath Puri. Let my so-called Kshetra Sannyas go to hell." When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Gadadhar Pandit to remain at Jagannath Puri and engage in Gopinath service, Gadadhar Pandit replied, "One renders service to Gopinath 1,000,000 times simply by seeing your lotus feet." Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then said, "If you abandon his service, it will be my fault. It is better that you remain here and render service. That will be my satisfaction." The Pandit replied, "Do not worry. All the faults will be on my head. I shall not accompany you, but shall go alone. I shall go to see Sachimata, but I shall not go for your sake. I shall be responsible for the abandoning of my vow and service to Gopinath." Thus Gadadhar Pandit traveled alone. But when they all arrived at Katak, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu called him and he went into the Lord's company. And then they had a very wonderful, intimate, private discussion. Purport: just to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's association, Gadadhar Pandit gave up his life's vow to engage in Gopinath service. This kind of loving affection can be understood only by very confidential devotees. Ordinarily, no one can understand this purport. Gadadhar Pandit's behavior was very pleasing to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's heart. Nevertheless, the Lord took his hand and spoke to him, displaying the anger of love. "You have abandoned Gopinath service and broken your vow to live in Puri. All that is now complete because you have come so far. Your wanting to go with me is simply a desire for sense gratification. In this way you are breaking two religious principles, and because of this, I am very unhappy." Of course, he was feigning anger. "If you want my happiness, please return to Nilachala. You will simply condemn me if you stay any more. If you say any more about this matter." Saying this, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu turned around, got on a boat, and left. And Gadadhar immediately fainted unconscious. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ordered Sarvabhauma to take Gadadhar Pandit with him. The Bhattacharya told Gadadhar Pandit, "Get up!" Such are the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You should know that Lord Krishna himself violated his own promise just to keep the promise of grandfather Bhishma. Similarly, tolerating separation from you, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has protected your vow with great endeavor. In this way, Sarvabhauma revived Gadadhar Pandit. Then both of them, very much grief-stricken, returned to Jagannath Puri. All the devotees would abandon all kinds of duties for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's sake, yet the Lord did not like the devotees giving up their promised duties. All these are the misgivings of loving affairs. Whoever listens to these incidents gets the shelter of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's lotus feet very soon. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his party arrived at Yajapur, the Lord asked the two government officers who had come with him to return. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu bade farewell to the officers, and Ray Ramananda continued on with the Lord. The Lord talked to Ramananda Rai about Sri Krishna day and night. In each and every village, in compliance with the king's order, government officers constructed new homes and filled them each with stocks of grain. Thus they served the Lord. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu finally arrived at Remuna, where he bade farewell to Sri Ramananda Roy. When Ramananda Roy fell to the ground and lost consciousness, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took him upon his lap and began to cry. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's feelings of separation from Ramananda Roy are very difficult to describe. Indeed, it is almost intolerable to do so, and therefore, I cannot describe them any further. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu finally arrived at the border of the state of Orissa, a government officer came there to meet him. This is important because at that border, there's a Muslim state begins at the border of Orissa there, heading into Bengal. And the government officer was a representative of Maharaj Putrarudra, right? And he comes and tells him that, this is a very dangerous place. You're going into this Muslim state. The Muslim ruler is a drunkard. There's all kinds of thieves and robbers. You should wait some time until we can make some agreement that it's safe to travel. So as he was describing all of this to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there was a representative of the Muslim king who had come there in disguise. And he was listening to all of this conversation because he heard about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's coming. So he heard this conversation, and immediately he went, as he heard this conversation, the devotees were chanting, and he was hearing the holy name, and they were experiencing all of these ecstatic symptoms. And he witnessed all of this, so when he went back to the Muslim ruler, he began describing who this person was, and as he was describing this, he began to chant, and he also became mad and ecstatic with love, just from his remembrance. And having seen Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as we saw earlier, the ladies, the wives of the devotees, when they saw the Lord at a distance, they felt immediately ecstatic symptoms and love. He told the Mohammedan Muslim ruler, governor, all these saintly people incessantly chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and they all laugh, dance, chant, and cry. Many millions upon millions of people come to see him, and after they see him, they cannot return home. All these people become like madmen. They simply chant the holy name of Krishna and dance. Sometimes they even cry and roll on the ground. After saying this, the messenger began to chant the holy names of Hare and Krishna. He also began to laugh and cry, dance and sing exactly like a madman. When the Muslim governor heard this, his mind changed. He then sent his secretary to the representative of the Orissan government. The Muslim secretary came to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When he offered his respects to the Lord's lotus feet, and uttered the holy name of the Lord, Krishna, Krishna, he was also overwhelmed with ecstatic love. Wow. After calming down, the Muslim secretary offered his respects and informed the representative of the Orissan government, the Muslim governor has sent me here. If you agree, the Muslim governor will come here to meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and then return. The Muslim governor is very eager, and he has submitted this petition with great respect. It is a proposal for peace. You need not fear that we will fight. Of course, the devotees there were quite amazed and astonished that how is it that this governor, who is a drunkard, he's all of a sudden changed his mind. But the agreement was that the governor would come. He would be accompanied by 5 or 7 servants, and he would be dressed like a Hindu. Then he would come to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Upon seeing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu from a distant place, the Muslim governor fell to the ground and offered obeisances. Tears came to his eyes, and he was jubilant with ecstatic emotions. Arriving in that way, the Muslim governor was respectfully brought before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by the Mahapatra. The governor then stood before the Lord with folded hands, and he chanted the holy name of Krishna. The governor then submissively asked, "Why was I born in a Muslim family? This is considered a low birth. Why didn't Supreme Providence grant me a birth in a Hindu family? If I had taken birth in a Hindu family, it would have been very easy for me to obtain your lotus feet. Since my body is now useless, let me die immediately." Upon hearing the governor's submissive statement, the Mahapatra was overwhelmed with joy. He clasped the lotus feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and began to offer the following prayers. And he offers some very beautiful glorifications of the Lord. No wonder that this Muslim governor has attained such results. Simply by seeing you, all this is possible. The Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then glanced with mercy at the Muslim governor, giving him assurance. He asked him to chant the holy names, Krishna and Hari. The Muslim governor then said, "You have so kindly accepted me, please give me some order so that I can render you some service." We'll read one purport here. This is very nice. It is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy that he advises everyone, even Chandala, Malachas, and Yavanas, to chant the holy name of the Lord. In other words, one who has taken to chanting the holy names Krishna and Hari has already received Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy. The Lord's request to chant the holy name of Krishna is now extended to everyone in the world through the Krishna consciousness movement. Haribol. Whoever follows Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instructions will certainly be purified, and one who sincerely chants the holy name of Krishna offenselessly is already more than a Brahmana. Unfortunately, there are many fools and rascals in India who do not allow Western Vaishnavas to enter certain temples. Of course, we know Prabhupada wrote this during that very interesting time when devotees were trying to get into some South Indian and as well as Puri temple. Such rascals do not clearly understand the Vedas. As stated previously, Yan Namaidhya Shravananu Kirtanat Sevanaya Kalpate. Translation. The Muslim governor then said, "Since you have so kindly accepted me, please give me some order so that I can render you some service." So what the governor did was he made sure that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's travel all the way to the inner areas of Bengal would be safe. And the next morning, the governor sent his secretary with many nicely decorated boats to bring Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to the other side of the river. Another note is that these places that were, these residences that were constructed by Maharaj Patvarudra, the order was that they would be turned into memorials to commemorate Chaitanya Mahaprabhu coming and either staying there or honoring prasadam or bathing. And these places were all glorified so nicely. The Mahapatra crossed the river with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and when they reached the other shore, the Muslim governor personally received the Lord and worshipped his lotus feet. Finally, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu bade farewell to the Mahapatra, standing on the riverbank and looking at the boat. The Mahapatra began to cry. Wow, I think we can finish it. We might go over for a few minutes. The Muslim governor then personally accompanied the Lord, and at a certain point he bade a farewell. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued with his travels. The Lord finally reached Panihati, where he met with Raghunath Das. He stayed at Raghava Pandit's home there. And then he went to Kumarahat, where Srivas Thakur lived. At the house of Srivas Thakur, the Lord went to the house of Shivananda Sain and then to the house of Vasudeva Datta. So he visits various Vaishnavas as he gets closer and closer to Navadvip. After leaving Kulia, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited the house of Advaita Charja at Shantipur, and that is where he also met his mother. So his goal, of course, was to go to Bengal and see his mother, Sachimata, take darshan and bath in the Ganga, and then from there he would come back to Puri and then go to Vrindavan. Also here in the Shantipur area, he met Hiranya and Govardhan Majumdar, the brothers who were the Govinda, was it? Yeah, I think it was Govinda who, I'm sorry, not Govinda, but Govardhan. He was the father of Raghunath Das. And they were very important landowners, and it was actually by their charity, by their arrangements, that the devotees in that region were taken care of. They were very wealthy landowners, and they would give profuse charity to the brahmanas and to the devotees. So they were very special personalities. Raghunath Das's father, Govinda, always rendered much service to Advaita Charja. Consequently, Advaita Charja was very pleased with the family. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Raghunath met, immediately Raghunath wanted to, and of course this is elaborated on further in latter volumes, but there's a short here description of how Raghunath used to run away from home so that he could join Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but his father would always bring him back. And then he kept on doing this constantly, and when the Lord arrived to Shantipur, Raghunath asked his father, "Please, can I go and visit and have darshan?" So his father relented, but he had 11 guards constantly wherever he would travel. And he kept on thinking, how is it that I can get away from these guards to join Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, being omniscient, knew that, what he was thinking, and spoke to him later. "Be patient and return home. Don't be a crazy fellow. By and by you will be able to cross the ocean of nescience. You should not make yourself a show bottle devotee and become a false renunciant. For the time being, enjoy the material world in a befitting way and do not become attached to it." Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, "Within your heart you should keep yourself very faithful, but externally you may behave like an ordinary man. Thus Krishna will soon be very pleased and deliver you from the clutches of Maya. You may see me at Nilachala when I return after visiting Vrindavan. By that time you can think of some trick to escape. In this way Chaitanya Mahaprabhu bade farewell to Raghunath. After returning home, Raghunath gave up all his craziness, and when his parents saw that, okay, he's back to normal, they let up their guard on him. So, shortly after that, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went and approached his mother, Sachi Devi, and he, falling at her feet, asked her permission that he could go to Vrindavan, which she happily gave. And at that point, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu leaves Shantipur and heads back. Gadadhar Pandit also came and met the Lord. Then before all the devotees, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to speak as follows. It was my decision to go to Vrindavan through Bengal in order to see my mother and the river Ganges. Thus I went to Bengal, but thousands of devotees began to follow me. And he was sort of, not lamenting, but commenting that so many devotees were there. I couldn't do anything. Rupa and Sanatan, he also met them there in Ramakeli, where he took counsel from Sanatan. And Sanatan suggested that that it's not a good idea with you going to Vrindavan with all of these followers. And instead, you should go alone. I decided that Sanatan had spoken very well. I was certainly being followed by a large crowd, and when people would see so many men, they would surely rebuke me, saying, "Here is another impostor coming to Vrindavan with so many followers." I then began to consider that Vrindavan is a very solitary place. It is invincible and very difficult to attain. I therefore decided to go there alone, and at the utmost with only one person. And then he goes on to describe Madhavendra Puri's traveling there as well. I then understood that I was going to Vrindavan like a magician with his show. And this is certainly not good. No one should go to Vrindavan with so many men. I have therefore resolved to go alone and at the utmost with one servant. In this way my journey to Vrindavan will be beautiful. I therefore said, "Fie upon me," and being very much agitated, I returned to the banks of the Ganges. I then left all the devotees there and brought only 5 or 6 persons with me. Now I wish that you all will be pleased with me and give me good counsel. And at this point, after describing all of this, Gadadhar Pandit, who was there, said, "You can stay in Vrindavan as well as the river Jamuna, or wherever you stay. All these places are Vrindavan, and they all become places of pilgrimage. Although wherever you stay is Vrindavan, you will still go to Vrindavan just to instruct people. Otherwise, you will do whatever you think best." Upon hearing this statement, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stated that Gadadhar Pandit had properly presented their desire. Being requested by all the devotees, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu agreed to remain at Jagannath Puri for 4 months, because again, they came up with this proposal that it's a rainy season, you can't go. Okay, so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu relented, hearing this, and then he said, "Okay, I will stay, but only after those 4 months," and all the devotees agreed. Hearing this, King Pratparudra also became very happy. That day, Gadadhar Pandit extended an invitation to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and the Lord took his lunch at his place with the other devotees. Although Lord Anantadev is always describing the pastimes of the Lord with his thousands of mouths, he cannot reach the end of even one of the Lord's pastimes. Praying at the lotus feet of Rupa and Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishnadas, narrate Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, following in their footsteps. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai.